Hi, I'm Sonya White Jaguar. Welcome to this edition of White Jaguar Wednesdays, my semi-monthly series where I discuss spiritual subjects inspired by your questions. Today is part 4 of my 5-part series where I'm discussing ways that you can communicate with Alan Rickman on the other side, besides using the guided meditation that I have here on YouTube. To recap, in part 1, I discussed physical tools you can use, including tarot and oracle cards, as well as the tarot spread that Alan had channeled to me, which you can get for free on my website. And I also discussed ways that you can ask yes/no questions. Then in part 2, I demonstrated a real-time conversation with Alan where he answered yes/no questions using mini Maglite flashlights. Then in part 3, I discussed ways that you can ask Alan to convey messages using physical means, including media files and books. Today, I'd like to discuss some spiritual techniques that you can try. The first one I'd like to talk about is dreams. Dreams are a common way for people on the other side to make contact with us here. In fact, in the shamanic tradition, it's not uncommon for shamanic practitioners to rely upon dreams to receive messages. Back in 2016, when I first started working with Alan, I asked him if he would interact with me in dreams and give me messages, and he's been giving me dreams ever since. In my free book on Wattpad, From Actor to Healer, Alan Rickman's New Life as a Spirit Guide, I documented several dreams that Alan has given me. And in probably the most dramatic dream, he gave me a healing hand position, and he told me to hold my hands together like this and channel Reiki to each of my chakras, and that this would amplify the energy. And I tried this when I woke up, and I got a dramatic healing. It helped to clear a lot of negative energy and grief that I was feeling at the time. So Alan does a great job conveying messages using dreams. I'd like to share a quick story with you. I mentioned in part 1 how one of my Reiki students used to do paranormal investigations, and I went to her house and we did a couple of sessions in 2017 where she showed me how to use the equipment and document contact with Alan. She set up a digital camera, a digital recorder, she took pictures, and unfortunately, when I reviewed the footage later, we didn't capture any full body apparitions of Alan. The most dramatic evidence that we got really was his use of the flashlights, which of course I still communicate with him this way even today. So something interesting happened after my sessions at her house. I had an interesting dream. In the dream, I was walking down a sidewalk with a journalist, and like me, she was very sensitive and she was fascinated by my experiences with Alan. And there was a cameraman who was filming our interview walking down the sidewalk with us. Now, Alan was with us, and he appeared as he usually does to me. He appeared as an older man with white hair, and he was dressed nicely in a dark suit, and he was beaming. He was so happy that we were talking about him and that he was being acknowledged for this work across dimensions. So later in the dream, I had the opportunity to review the footage of this interview. And ironically, all you could see in the footage was the journalist and I walking down the street. You could not see Alan. And Alan was reviewing the footage with me, and he conveyed his emotions to me. He basically expressed that he was so disappointed that he could not be seen in that footage. So I feel that he used that dream to convey his feelings about the sessions that I did at my student's house. It's like he was saying, I was trying to project myself so that you could get evidence of me on that camera, and it just didn't work out. So he was disappointed that we couldn't capture evidence of him. So feel free to ask Alan to work with you in dreams and to give you messages. Now, I have to say, not all of the dreams that Alan gives me are that dramatic. I've had other dreams that were really quick. And for example, earlier this year, I had a dream where he appeared as an older man with white hair, but he didn't say anything. He just stood there, and he was wearing a really bright emerald green sweater. And I thought perhaps he was either speaking to my subconscious or he was doing healing work. because green very often will refer to either the heart chakra or healing. So just be aware of that not every dream may be that dramatic. What I'd like to do now is share with you a dream that a friend of mine had. You've been listening to me share a lot of my experiences, and a friend of mine had a very interesting dream. Now, my friend has been working with Alan for a while now, and he has a very active dream life. He's been keeping a dream journal for maybe 30 or 40 years. So he asked Alan to work with him in dreams, and he has given my friend a few dreams. And this was, I believe, the first dream he had, and this was back in February of this year. I'll read it to you. I was wandering about a house and went into a kitchen-like room where I saw Alan Rickman sitting at a small square wooden table. I sat down across from Alan and we started talking. The first thing I noticed about Alan was his hair. It was long and straight on top, swept over to his right, and dyed very light blonde or white. Next, I noticed he was acting very animated and exaggerated. He would toss his head around and strike poses, acting dramatic. I told him I couldn't see without my glasses. Then Alan put on some glasses and said he had the same problem. I asked, well, what if you're playing a role in a scene and can't see the other actor? We both pantomimed, swinging our arms around, feeling about like we were blind. I joked, I know you're there somewhere. We both laughed. At one point, while we were looking into each other's eyes, our heads moved closer and closer until the tops of our foreheads touched. Then Alan took something like an index card from a small box that was 3 inches by 5 inches in size and read it. He said, I get 30 to 40,000 of these every day. I asked what they were, but couldn't make out his answer. I asked again, and Alan became almost surly. I said, sorry, when you brought it up, I thought you wanted me to know. After a moment, Alan answered, and I understood him this time. He said they were telegrams. Very interesting dream. My friend and I talked a lot about the imagery in here. Now, my friend is a big movie buff, and he had seen many of Alan's movies while Alan was living, so he was a fan of Alan's, unlike me. I discovered Alan's work after he died. So it's interesting to me that Alan kind of met my friend on that level. You know, my friend knew him as an actor, so he appeared animated and acting dramatic like an actor. They joked about acting. So he was meeting my friend on the level that he knew him, as an actor. But yet it was also a very comfortable, casual environment. It was a house, it was a kitchen-like room. So it's like he was saying, he was acknowledging, yes, this is my past, but I'm approachable. You can ask me for help. And the part of the dream where they were looking into each other's eyes and they touched foreheads, it's like Alan was saying, I'm connecting with you through your third eye chakra. That was interesting to me. And of course, the telegrams, at the end of the dream. We talked about it, and then afterwards I asked Alan to explain what that meant. And Alan basically said that every day he's getting hits from people all over the world. He said if people think about him or talk about him or share files online, pictures or articles or something, he gets a hit. He knows that someone is thinking about him and talking about him. So basically what he's saying is, I'm already getting notified every day. So if you'd like to work with me, I'm going to feel you and I'll help you. You're not bothering me, in other words. So I thought that was a very powerful message to convey in a dream. And in fact, I had an experience back in 2019 that I feel corroborates that message in that dream. Unfortunately, something really tragic had happened with my cat at the time, and I don't want to go into the story here, but I am sharing the story in the sequel, which I'll be posting to Wattpad soon. And anyway, I was very distraught that night, and Alan came to me out of the blue, and he said, open YouTube and search for Alan Rickman Theater. Now, I had no idea what he wanted me to see, but I went ahead and did that, and I scrolled just a little ways down, and a video had popped up that had just been added to YouTube very soon before that, and I had never seen it before. It was a full audience recording of Seminar, a comedy play that Alan had starred in 2011. And he obviously was guiding me to that to help cheer me up after what had happened. Something very similar had happened a couple of months later. He did the exact same thing. He said, open YouTube and search for Alan Rickman Theater. And this time, at the top, a video had come up that had just been added to YouTube maybe 2 or 3 days before that. It was a radio play that Alan had done some years ago called Rope. So it's like he was letting me know that he's aware when someone shares something online like that. So again, feel free, to ask Alan for help. He will respond to you. So I'd like to share with you a really quick tip related to dreams. Another way that you can ask Alan to work with you is ask him to work with you when you're first waking up and you're in that hypnopompic state. You're kind of half asleep, half awake. And he can work with you that way. He's appeared to me many times, given me visions and given me messages when I'm first waking up in the morning. This is a good technique to try, especially if, unlike my friend, if you don't have vivid dreams or if you don't remember your dreams typically, try that. Ask Alan to work with you when you're first waking up. And another technique you can try is automatic writing. You could say that I'm doing a form of automatic writing when I ask Alan for messages to share with you during these White Jaguar Wednesdays videos. Typically, I'll sit down and I'll ask Alan a question, and I'll either use the computer or pen and paper, and I'll ask him the question, and then I'll write down, the first thing that comes. And sometimes it's true automatic writing where I'm not thinking about it, and other times it's more of a dialogue, and he'll even give me visions, and we go back and forth, and I hear his thoughts and then write it down. So it's truly a combination. But you can try automatic writing and see if he will work with you using the written word. And of course, I don't want to fail to mention that if you are sensitive, if you are clairvoyant or clairaudient, and you hear spirit, you're sensitive to spirit, then feel free to reach out to Alan directly, telepathically, and talk to him. And he'll work with you that way too. So that concludes today's presentation. I hope that this was helpful to you. I hope you'll try some of these different methods. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment below or email me at sonya@sonyawhitejaguar.com. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I hope you'll join me for part 5, the final video in this series, where I'll be discussing ways that you can strengthen your connection to Alan. I'll see you then.